Assalamu alaikum, good evening, and welcome to tonight's episode of Talking Point. I'm your host, Saudha Ahmed. In our studios today, we have a group of very distinguished persons. On my left is Saudha Ahmed Kaysher ji. He is director of Saudha. Next to him is Shree Ganguly, a spoken word artist and a poet. And next to her is Peter Culshaw, a journalist, a writer, a musician, a pianist, and I will leave it to him to explain his own expertise and his own foray into different fields.
Well, yes, I do wear different hats. I just put out a record of me playing piano, which was recorded mainly in Mumbai, called Music from the Temple of Light, and I've written a lot of music criticism, journalism, and a book called Clandestino. So, and I have written a lot about eccentric and visionary musicians and artists, which is probably how I came into contact with our friend Ahmed from Saudha, as he seemed to fit into that category, or he doesn't really fit into a category, like me. So we're fellow people who don't fit into an easy box, I would say.
No, he's a man of, he wears many hats. So, yes, TM, would you like to say something about what you are going to do, you have done, and what is your aim with when you introduce music, Indian music, you go to South American music and the whole world music you talk about, but what is your real intention? You want to bring peace to the world, you want to have good relationship with the entire world, introduce the world to music and just let them enjoy, and you sit back and relax.
Thank you, Niyadji, for inviting us as part of your very esteemed
I'll come back to
you. Program, which is Talking Point. We celebrated your 10th year.
Thank you.
Of this beautiful program, which is making definitely a sharp change, a visible change. For us actually, any art, the philosophical aim of any art is to introduce is to interact with human beings, is to introduce one human being from perhaps one continent to others, and not just human being, even for someone to explore the beauty of nature. So it's kind of an introduction with even object to human being, or a human being with human being. And through, for an example, whatever, if you read a writing or poetry, doesn't matter which continent it belongs to, which culture it belongs to, it gives you a profound experience of exploring human psychology, and then you say, oh wow, eureka, I find the reflection of myself there. So perhaps this is also another aim of any art, to remove the feeling of foreignness. So whenever we actually stereotype things as foreign, but there is nothing foreign. Even an object can be part of your existence and entity. And art is doing this. Art is making things more dearly to human beings. So even if you listen to music, and what my friend Peter is doing, a phenomenal job he's been doing, is, well, like you mentioned, his work, his writing, he has been writing for mainstream newspapers, Guardian, Telegraph, but he's an amazing composer. He has been accompanying with many legendary performers, singers. One among them is Asha Bhosleji, R.D. Burman. So through these activities, he's proving that the world is one. Even though whatever R.D. Burman is singing, this is still fitting in Saregama Padanisa. So this is still fitting in harmony of melody. Doesn't matter which continent it is coming from. So Saudha, as you know, is working with a spectrum of arts. So it's not just music, it's not just poetry, it's not just painting. We are trying to establish the harmony between all different arts. So whenever we do Indian classical music, we find something quite, we find a huge affinity even with Javanese gamelan music that we will be doing this year. We have been, like you attended in our Royal Albert Hall event, and people are saying what is the affinity between classical music and a Mexican artist, Frida Kahlo.
Right.
So this sort of, and then they find a profound affinity, and they find, especially the audiences who came from South Asian background, they find even Frida Kahlo is the reflection of their emotions, and then they find Frida Kahlo not as just a Mexican artist. They find Frida Kahlo as his own or her own artist. So whatever we've been doing, it is to establish that there is no any border of foreignness, especially in arts, because it works with the universal emotions. And like you mentioned, sort of what is our aim since, I mean, last 10 years, we have been working with Western classical music. Perhaps you attended in one of the sessions that you did in the House of Commons. Sebastian Bach's compositions were merged with Indian classical music, which is Rag Chayanot, and it went so well. Audiences from Western background, they find something so similar, which is also portraying the same emotions and especially Indian classical music audiences find something so profound, visceral, even in Sebastian Bach. So this is actually bridging, not just bridging. Bridging is perhaps a very shallow word to say. This is because bridge is always there. We are, whatever we are doing.
This is the superhighway.
Yeah, so what we are doing, just making a thread, because thread is there, all affinity is already there. We are making a seamless thread so that it is also, like you mentioned before, it is also entertaining for others. They do not see any differences there, and then they find, especially the emotions, even in constructions. And then the one we'll be doing on 15th of January in Royal Albert Hall, that is also Indian, Italian bel canto music, which is one of the most profound visceral music. Tumri, troubadour, Arabian music, Chinese ancient music. Through all different music, we are, first of all, we are offering a breathtaking experiences for audiences, and then look at this music from a completely different view. And the other thing is also to create new audiences of serious art forms. So whoever comes to show this event, they look forward to attend more, because this is also aiming to expand the audiences network. So say for example, in Frida Kahlo's event, many painting loving audiences attended there, but they become the fan of Indian classical music. They saw painting is also portraying, also reflecting the emotions that they would like to see from painting, but also
it was very informative, CC, and it was, I didn't know much about Frida Kahlo, but I think I learned a lot. Yes, I was there, attended.
And it takes quite a skill to present. I mean, I mean, if you look at it, we say, hang on a minute, Frida Kahlo with Indian classical music, that's not going to work. So it takes a skill to do it. I just think
interweave.
How you know, actually they're quite small paintings, but if they're blown up and you get a chance to listen through the Indian classical music, you can really meditate on, and you realize a lot of and they were reading, you were reading the diaries of Frida Kahlo. And it's really a lot about, and she was quite physically, quite ill a lot of the times, and it was about her relations, her painful relationships, and but also a universal sense of disconnection with the divine, which is something you get in all cultures. Like, I mean, I love the Sufi music, for example. That is often, it's really about a feeling of disconnection or connection to the divine.
Connection to the divine,
so there is a kind of, so even though on paper you'd think that it doesn't work very well, and the other thing is there are specifics which, to me it's like Mexico City and Bombay are somewhat similar energies as a place, and you got that idea came over to me. And I would think a third thing is, as I said, I'm composing music. There's some things are universal, some things are specific. So I play piano, but the advantage of working with Indian classical instruments is like you can tune the tablas. You can, the Indian violins could go, there's multitudes of notes. Whereas in Western music, it tends to be like you've got your 12 notes on the octave, that's your lot. Whereas Indian music can be much more expressive, and that is a particular beauty of Indian culture, which so I'm saying there are specific things. It's like some things are universal, such as the feeling of you've had a terrible time with your lover, you feel your connection with the divine.
Peter, I'll ask you about...
Some things are much more
later
specific
I'll
to
ask
a
you
culture.
about your experience with Asha Bhosle-ji, but let me go to
Kindly,
Shree.
Peter attended last year's in Royal Albert Hall, and he did cover a beautiful review on Royal Albert Hall. It's a great pleasure that Niazi also attended in last year's Royal Albert Hall.
Well, it was a terrific thing. This is one of the reasons we're here, and we hope to come in January. I have no idea really what the next...
She was also there.
It sounds like we've got bel canto with other things, and Shree is going to be on last year's and next year's, so that was quite an experience last year, I guess.
I'm very excited about this, honestly.
How was your experience doing Frida Kahlo in English?
See, like Peter clearly pointed out, we are people here who don't belong to any sort of categories.
Right.
We don't belong to any definitions. And that is what appeals to me. That is why we can sort of like water merge into other cultures, other stories, and taste and feel the intricacies of literature and language worldwide. So last year my experience was on a personal level. It was a lot of learning. Frida happens to be one of my favorite artists because of her honesty, how she sort of revealed every little ugly scar, quote unquote ugly, and made it beautiful. How she revealed her brokenness. She was not afraid to be attracted to both men, women. She spoke about her difficult relationship. This kind of honesty from a woman, such feminism definitely inspired me. And then also, like Peter and Kaysher said, that there was a connect in the program from a personal level, a person's journey in love, with love and pain, and there was a universal level with the divine. We are always longing to find something that will complete us. So there was that connection, and then of course there were the paintings and the music.
Right.
And I was reading out her letters and her diaries and her poems. So yes, it was an intriguing experience, definitely. One of a lifetime.
Great.
And the chef was good. It was like a meal. And sometimes you see these people put the different ingredients together, pasta and curry doesn't always work, but he just managed to put all the seasoning, and so he's like the chef of the event. And
the chef knows the recipe.
Yes, you have to have a good recipe and good cook.
Yeah, what works.
Thank you, Peter. But one thing that, because she is absolutely a very powerful writer and fictionist, and she's also a wonderful performer. So when she performs, she can easily feel the insight of, and then silence between two adjacent words, and her performance makes a difference because she can feel the insight hidden within each word. So that's why perhaps we still receive so many beautiful feedbacks of Frida Kahlo's event, because
I mean, one thing was you saw a painting like The Wounded Deer was one, but there was so much. In fact, it's not a big painting, and if you see it in a museum, but it was blown up.
Yeah.
Then you had this music, quite meditative and longing music, and some words. So you could spend. You actually wouldn't normally spend 8 minutes or 5 minutes just looking at a painting. So you could really be drawn into it and see all the little details, and the music would draw you into it. I'm just saying, normally, actually, in a museum, you wouldn't really meditate on such a painting, or you wouldn't really on a book. So it enabled you to go deeper into a painting than you normally would. And I think that worked, especially with her work, which is very layered and there's lots of depth in it.
Where are her paintings? Well,
all over.
all over?
All over.
Are they in London somewhere, or?
all over. Tate Museum did an exhibition a few years back, as I can remember, but all over the world she has.
There's a Frida Kahlo museum in Mexico City.
Mexico City itself,
Which,
yeah.
It's my
I
dream
did
to
go
go
to.
there someday.
Did you go there
actually.
as well?
I did.
Wow.
Although the best museum is the Anthropology Museum, which is incredible. But anyway.
She was just she was a walking piece of art herself. I mean, just being a person who she was at that point of time.
Yeah.
Incredible.
You know, I was surprised. Last year we were in Turkey and we were going through Grand Bazaar with my and buying odd things to see. And then suddenly I saw some painting and I said to my wife, "This looks like Frida Kahlo." And she said, "No, come on, not here." I said, "Yes." So I went into the shop and I said, "Is that?" He said, "Yes, I know. And somebody would come and ask me." I know. and I was surprised that somewhere there in the Grand Bazaar, where people are heckling for, over odd things and potteries and made in China products, I see there's this.
Well, also with some of these paintings, like
Yes.
the Scream or
Yes.
Edvard Munch or Frida Kahlo, they've become very fashionable. So it's almost like they're trendy.
Yeah.
Madonna
Trendy.
connects them.
Absolutely.
So then to get really into it, to really brush all that questions of fashionability, to actually really study the painting. Sometimes that stuff makes a lot of noise
Exactly.
as a sort of fashion thing.
Yes, I agree that you have to walk into that world rather than what it has become
Yeah.
right now with being so popular as Frida is.
Well, what else do you do, Shree?
I'm a writer and a spoken word artist.
No. What do you write about?
I write short stories and poems, but again, sometimes I cannot define them into a genre, because sometimes it's about the power struggle between the gender. Many times it's about folklore. It's sometimes about, like I said, masculinity, femininity, but I cannot define it that way.
It's very hard to categorize Shree's writing, because it's equally poetry but equally prose as well. And one of my favorite writer and philosopher, French philosopher Henri Michaud, who declines and repudiated to categorize or label his writing as poetry or prose, simply text. So he used to, he was in favor of labeling things, writing as text, not subcategory as poetry, and because writing, whatever you are expressing, it can be equally poetry and equally perhaps you are weaving a story as well. So I think Shree's writing is quite
See,
fitting
normally
in
when we
audiences.
say poetry, I mean these are rhythmic expressions, I see. That's what we say poetry.
Nowadays, rhythm, even there is some inner rhythm. Even if you read prose, there is some inner rhythm, and that can make say prose
Right. Yes.
as poetry.
That's what they call the prose poetry.
Exactly. Perhaps you are interested, and this is something that I'm also interested in to explore. Peter's association with Asha Bhosle.
Yes. How long was this association for?
Well, I mean, she's obviously one of the great singers, and I'd been an admirer for a long time. And then I was born in Leicester, which is a very South Asian place. So you know, you'd hear Asha and Lataji's voice coming around, you know, in the atmosphere.
Yes.
And but I was working with this dance company, and I was in a trio of us called West India Company, and we got this commissioned to. There was a ballet, a dance which was at Sadler's Wells and travelling around the world, and our percussionist Pandit Dinesh knew Asha, so we said, maybe just send her a note, maybe she'd like to do it. Not really expecting she would, but in fact she's a rather adventurous person. So she came from, I think she's just performing at Madison Square Gardens to thousands of adoring people, to this studio in North London, and we did a whole album that came out called New Demons, which was then used as the soundtrack for this dance company, so that went around the world. And then we thought, well, maybe we should go to Bombay itself. So we went to Juhu and did another lot of recordings with Ashaji and R.D. Burman and various other musicians and film orchestras, most of which didn't come out because it was so expensive. The manager went bankrupt and couldn't pay all the bills. But I think eventually it will come out. But but I mean, obviously, it was a great honor, and she's one of the great singers.
Where did you feature in the whole
I
thing?
was like playing keyboards and helping compose and just pulling stuff together, because it was quite a complicated project, as you can imagine. But again, talking about specifics, I mean, there's something very special about Asha's and Lata's, you know, they had an almost monopoly, so they were like the soundtrack to people's lives for decades. I mean, they were like goddesses. I mean, you don't really have the equivalent here, I think.
Right.
And beautiful singers. And of course, partly because that high voice, you don't have to have a very expensive hi-fi. You know, you could have a fairly cheap speaker in the middle of nowhere, and the voice comes through. It's extraordinary. It's like an incredible instrument.
We are nearly at the end of this first segment, and I know that you have another appointment somewhere else, so we will bid you goodbye. But
well, thank you for inviting me.
We hope to meet you again and again. And after we come back. After we go for a break. Welcome back. Just before the break, we had Peter with us, and Mr. Peter Culshaw has gone on another assignment, and we have been joined by Dr. Jeet Ganguly. He is a psychiatrist, but a great supporter and connoisseur of art, literature, and poetry, and music, might I say. It would not be right to say, but I would tell you that he is husband of Shree Ganguly. And the love of music runs in the family. Tell us something about yourself.
As you said, by profession, I'm a consultant child psychiatrist. But I suppose, as far as what we are discussing today, in terms of music and arts and things like that, I would say that I am just somebody who is curious about the human condition, and just somebody who is interested in the world around me. And from that perspective, I guess, even though as far as the arts or the the formal or classical music is concerned, I would completely consider myself to be a layperson. But I'm extremely grateful to Shree and to good friends like Kaysher Bhai for introducing me to a world which does open up your avenues in terms of music and literature and poetry and prose, and it's just a fantastic experience. So I'm very, very grateful to all of them. So within this context, that's who I am.
Right. Okay.
This is a very humble statement, Niyaji.
Okay.
Jeet is an absolutely a great observer and great analyzer of art, literature, and music. I've in my friend list, close friend list, there are I haven't have perhaps anyone like Jeet who reads and watch things with such a insightful and analyzing heart, analyzing mindset. So this is why he also performed for Saudha, and many of our audiences were singing with the praise of his presence. One among them is we did the centenary celebration of a poetic masterpiece of last century, which is T.S. Eliot's Wasteland and Nazrul's Bidrohi, and that was a theatre production. So he acted there, and then obviously a few others in one of our operas. And many of our audiences said, well, after knowing that he's a psychiatrist, and then said, well, he needs to perhaps change his profession now because he's such a successful actor as well. But above all, he's a great connoisseur of art, literature, and music, and that helps show those art vision, because we need friends who have insight and also the bigger picture that art is trying to bring, or art is trying to bring the benefit of. So Jeet is one among these rare human beings.
Well, he is a psychiatrist, and you found these germs in him. Well, he tries to find germs in others. Yes, Kaysher, now to talk about this this music that you are going to host next week, tomorrow week.
Yeah. So this is the songs. The title of the event is Songs of Sringar and Seduction, Tumri to Troubadour. So under this event, there are many different. But to me, this is not different. This is oneness, actually. I'm saying different from general perspective. So different and diverse music from ancient eras. So the journey starts from Vedic age, and then Vedic age in India. Then obviously there are music from Greek traditions. The first ever music compositions, which is Seilikos music in Greece, that will be performed, and then some ancient Greek poets, Mesopotamian poets, the first female poets, Anhidwana.
So excited about reading that.
Anhidwana, she will be reading this, and then Arabian music, pre-Islamic music, and pre-Islamic poet. You must be familiar with the father of Arabian poetry, Arabian literature, Imrul Qais, the 5th century's poet, and he's very sensual poet. As you know, this production is about sensual poetry. Sringar is mother of all different rasas, like we were talking about before this event.
Do you have Persian poetry?
Persian poetry, Persians, and then obviously Arabian, like I mentioned, and then early European music, which is troubadour, and then
bel canto is also
exactly bel canto, and then obviously some poets, some very sensual poets from early European literature, Dante, for an example, and then obviously our South Asian classical music, which is Tumri, Dadra, which portrays a sharp emotions of Sringar.
Tumri is particularly.
Exactly, this is about longing, a sharp emotion. Toppa, for an example, and then Kirtan. Kirtan has in India. This event also aims to offer a new way of looking at sensuality. So in hedonistic world, in hedonistic and capitalist world, we always say, oh, sensuality is part of hedonism.
It's almost a product.
Exactly, it's kind of a product, and we see this as gratification of human desire.
Right.
Sometimes quite ruthlessly, or
Dr. Ganguly will have a different opinion on that.
selfishly. But this event also, only thing in Indian mythology, especially in ancient poetry and ancient literature, you would see sensuality is part of divinity as well. So Kama is a god in Indian mythology, and when Kama emerges in your mind, or your mind gets occupied with Kama's presence, then someone feels longing, someone feels a desire to meet his or her counterparts. And then when the union happens, divinity emerges from there. Radha Krishna.
Look at these Sufi poets. I mean, they talk about
Sufism,
love,
yes,
love
yes.
and love all the
Sufism and Sufism is the supreme portrayal of sensuality. Rumi, for an example, there are many Rumi's poems, and then Dante. Dante and some of the troubadours, some Italian, Petrarch, for example. Petrarch, another sonnet, the founder of sonnet. So Petrarch, an great Italian poets of 12th century. They wrote many, and then Kalidas, a Sanskrit poet of 5th century, some 2nd century, some Indian poets. So all this poetry, all this music from ancient eras up to a bit of post-medieval time will actually tied together to give, first of all, a breathtaking experience of music to the audiences, but also to offer a new way of looking at this music, a new way of looking at the theme, which is sensuality. And once again, this is something I would also like to add. Those who compose music, this is a great way, this is a great opportunity for them to look at the horizon of all different melodies, so that whatever platform they work, they always find a window of all different music, so that whatever they do, that can be enriched by importing those melodies into someone's compositions. So even in modern time, modern composers will also be benefited, I believe.
It sounds like a musical conference rather than just a show.
Exactly. I would like to, I personally see this as a, like I said, conferences, because obviously whatever we do, we aim to make it a bit of educational as well, because you may find some South Asian music lovers come, but we aim to have them as the lover of other traditions, and to introduce other music.
Shodo is very open to other cultures.
Exactly.
And other, like we are having a Chinese musician as well.
Exactly.
And she's playing a 2,000-year-old instrument.
Instrument, yes.
So
yes.
that's
2,000-year-old
old instrument, which is called zuhang. Zuhang. So it will be a completely a rare experience for you, Niyaji, because most of our, even many musicians are not familiar with this ancient, absolutely ancient.
Glimpse into so many different worlds through that little period of time.
Do you remember that Rajasthani girl who played these very funny-looking instruments? See, and it created strange sounds. See, but so rhythmic.
Rajasthan is another treasure. Exactly. Rajasthan is full of music.
Okay, sir. Time for another break. And we will come back and try to know more about Dr. Jeet Forte. Thank you very much for being with us, and we'll be back soon after this. Don't go away. Thank you. Welcome back. Just before the break, we were talking about a lot of things and the next week's program that Saudha is going to stage at Royal Albert Hall. But right now we have a very distinguished guest with us, Dr. Jeet Ganguly. He is a psychiatrist.
That's right.
And also he has a good deal of interest in music and poetry and art. Yes, sir. They say that a lot of psychiatrists, I don't know, I may be wrong, a lot of psychiatrists suggest that music can be very useful in treating patients. Is that right?
Treating, that's an interesting word. I wish we could treat everything. We unfortunately are limited, I think.
Right.
But yes, I mean,
it can be used.
I mean, it's really interesting because I think when we talk about treatment,
right,
in the current or the modern world, we think about medicines
right,
or surgical procedures and
right,
things like that. But it's really complicated. You
right,
have somebody with perhaps maybe a young person
right,
who has a neuro disability like autism or learning disability and things like that. Well, how do you manage the myriad emotional and psychological problems that that person is undergoing? You cannot even have a conversation with them
right,
in the usual sense. So how do you access those feelings and those thoughts? And what is really interesting is that when it comes to therapeutic interventions, when I say psychotherapeutic interventions, what you really find is that there is very interesting work that's been done, for example, by therapists who work with art, so art therapy, or drama therapy, or music therapy. And I suppose, well, I'm not a therapist in that sense. I work in what's called a multidisciplinary team, a MDT, where other professionals have equal role in all of these things. But I suppose what I've observed is that when you cannot reach through the usual way of conversation or talking, so to say, then sometimes things like art or music have this unusual way in which people can access something.
right.
So you're talking about people sort of, it's really interesting because you're talking about events where you certainly need a certain level of intellectual ability to access it, whereas what I'm talking about is the other extreme, where you have people with huge amounts of disability who perhaps have a lot of problems just accessing basic information of the world around them. And yet, you use the vehicle of something like art. When I say art, obviously I don't mean Monet. I mean just sitting down and playing with colors, and in an intuitive way, you find people accessing and working through things at an emotional level which can be absolutely life transforming. So in that sense, I suppose it reminds us that what we as human beings are able to access through things like art or music or things of that, things in those areas. It's hard to define, but there's something intrinsic within us which is drawn to that, which sort of connects to that. And I suppose absolutely you're right, that sometimes that can be used to good effect when we're talking about people who are disturbed or...
Like, sometimes we listen to sad songs, see, and they say that our sad songs are the best songs, see. Possibly they are, see. I tend to like sad songs, see, and not very...
They can be cathartic.
Yes, yes,
they can be cathartic. Absolutely.
And I sometimes listen to it alone. See, nobody should disturb me. See, and I find it soothing and it's exhilarating. See, it lifts my feelings. But perhaps it can work the other way with others. You would understand that more. Now, Shree, we have not been talking, and you have not been given the chance to talk much about yourself and your good work.
Tell us. Absorbing.
Yeah, tell us more about yourself. And
again, I'm interested in human nature and the world, and Keda and his Shodho basically wants to change the world. There is that feeling. And in a way, I would always feel I don't want to change the world. I want to create beauty. That's what I always thought. I want to create beauty, and that's all I want to do. But then someone told me, a friend, he quoted Hollier, I think, and he said the greatest form of revolt is creating something intensely beautiful. So maybe I want to change the world as well. So that's why I write. But before I want to change the world, I want to change myself. And with every day in my life, I'm learning something. I'm laughing, I'm finding a lot of joy in this. I'm crying too. It's because art is cathartic. Midnight, you're listening to a beautiful song. And why do we all cry? Because if you think of art as a body, if you think of humanity as a body, then art perhaps is the blood that's flowing through it. And that's why you cannot say this is the hand and that is the leg and here's Kamu and there is Kabir, because somewhere they are connected. That blood is art, and I want to smell it, feel it, touch it. My writing does not have a genre. I don't know what I'm going to write about. Recently I'm writing about a short story called The Window. It's about loneliness. It's about an old man and his wife living together during the lockdown and watching people through the window. So yeah, that's what I'm writing about. So I'm exploring loneliness in that piece. But I have explored sensuality and sort of the man-woman dynamic in my story, The Stolen Night, where seemingly a very powerful young woman is going on a long drive with a man she's having an affair with. And then what happens? So that particular story has been published as well. So for me, my writing is an exploration.
Great, Shree. We don't have much time now. We're about to close. Sir, final remarks from you.
Thank you very much. So on 15th of January, we'll have a series of events again next year, and please do find.
This year.
Please do. This year. So please do browse www.saudha.org for this. But the one that we are doing in Royal Albert Hall, the iconic Royal Albert Hall, one of the finest art venues in the world. And it is an honor to be invited to perform there for second time. And this session has an array of some world-leading musicians and performers. Ziazan, perhaps the last and the finest bel canto singer from Italian opera, will be performing there. She was mentioning about Izia Tu, a Chinese zhang player, one of the most ancient Chinese instrument player, also a folk singer, Chinese folk singer will be there. Rosella Bondi, a Neapolitan Italian singer, troubadour singer, a wonderful troubadour singer, also a part of this production. Then Laura Eady, a wonderful friend, a multi-instrumentalist and an amazing singer, a Greek-based Lebanese singer, joining from Greece. Then two very talented interpreters of Indian classical music, Koel Bhattacharya, Kuntal Dasha performing, joining from India, and three wonderful
we are on the last minute, so
British South Asian singers, which is Gauri Chaudhary, Farzana Sifat. Omid Dey is performing as part of this production. Tanjina Nuri Siddiq and Shree are performing spoken words there.
And
so please do.
Dr. Jeet.
I'm the designated chauffeur and the person who just observes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming along.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, our viewers, for being with us for all this time. And we hope to see you again next time with another individual or group of distinguished guests. Thank you. Bye for now. And bye for our guests.
Thank you.
Thank you.